Day 2 of Rank Week and the What Ifs here on the PHLY Network. And guess what, folks? Ours is so good. We're on day 2. The Sixers. Rank Week. How does it look? Man.
Terrible.
We got a lot to talk about right here. Welcome.
Or maybe we need to do the Charles Barkley. Terrible.
Welcome to the PHLY Sixers Podcast on a Tuesday. And again, we rank the What Ifs, the top 10 What Ifs for the Philadelphia 76ers, along with Kyle Newbeck. I'm Devon Givens. Bree is producing, our president of basketball operations, and you. And we know that the chat will be active for this one. Derek is off, and we'll get to Derek later in the week and get his thoughts on many things. But Kyle, we have tons. There were so many what ifs. And this is true for all the Phillies, Flyers, and Eagles.
Yep.
But man, putting this list together, there were like, oh man, I sent too many, and here we come down to this final 10 of what it looks like.
Yeah, and like there are some that aren't on the list that
exactly.
I think you can make arguments that they're even bigger than like even the top of the list. So the one I've brought up on past shows, right, is there was a years later. Hey, the Sixers tried to trade for Michael Jordan, the pick that became Michael Jordan in that draft, and they would have paired Jordan and Charles Barkley.
Yep.
But it's like so tenuous, and it's one of those, so like a conversation happening about a trade is not the same as like things that really happened, injuries, trade vetoes, games, moments, whatever. So there are some things that are out there that are like, boy, can you imagine if Michael Jordan was a Sixer? But we set those aside and focus more on like, these are things that were real tangible. And so away we go with a bunch of misery lane here that we'll be walking down.
And we also, because the franchise is such an older franchise that there's so many, we had to cap it at some point where we couldn't go back to Wilt Chamberlain and all that type of stuff. So we definitely wanted to include the 80s in it a little bit too. So that's where we'll start. Number 10 for the 80s is, what if Andrew Toney never developed the foot problem that kept him off the floor? What if the doctors, what if the team listened to him when he said that he had the injury? And what if they just simply acknowledged it the way that it should have been acknowledged and listened to their player? And what if the medical field was far more advanced at that time to check out Andrew Toney? So Andrew Toney had relatively a 5-year career. He was an all-star, NBA champion, obviously. And Kyle, so many NBA players from back then would say he was one of the best. And had he had a longer run. That's the guy that
put fear in teams.
Had he had a longer run, he would have easily been a Hall of Famer. And when they call you the Boston Strangler, you're good.
He made 2 All-Star teams at 25 and 26. He got MVP votes the next year at 27. Now, did not make an All-Star team that year, but was still like, hey, this guy is one of the scary two-guard, two-way type players in the league. And as you said, Devon, like if you ask Larry Bird and Magic and some of these other guys who were the vanguard of that era, when they're playing the Sixers, when they finally broke through, that was the guy. He's the Boston Strangler in those big moments when they need somebody, like, get that guy the ball. It's not Dr. J. It's not a clear out for Moses Malone, although Moses was the MVP and the finals MVP. Andrew Toney was the dynamic off the dribble, pull up shooter, all that's like, and so I did not get to watch Andrew Toney. He's before my time. So I revisit those games and I see the best of it, right? I didn't see the night to night. I didn't see the ups and downs and all that, but he's one of those guys that rose to the occasion when it mattered the most, that just really had no fear. And like setting aside the actual on-court stuff, I think one of the things that really bums me out is that whenever they do these, retrospective, the jersey retirements, the statues by the practice facility, and the old guys come back into town, right? You see so many faces that are like, oh man, that's a Sixers legend, and these guys that make up these teams. Andrew Toney just doesn't have a relationship or a desire to be around for those things because of how sour those grapes are.
Yep.
And it's a real shame because he is one of the most important players in the history of the franchise. And he just wants, nothing to do with it. Now, some of that is he also sounds like he's a private person, doesn't want to do, and that's fine. But it really is a shame that he feels so distant from this organization that he helped win one of their few titles in franchise history.
And it's tough too, because as you pointed out, this ownership is different, all of that, the coaches, the front office, it has nothing to do with that time. But because he is as private as he is, and because of how he holds that over them, you understand it to an extent because of it ruined his career. The trajectory is totally different if Andrew Toney was just simply listened to. Based on all the stuff that you hear. And while I'm older than you, I only saw a little bit. And that was the tail end of it where I really understood what was going on. And he was that good. And by that time, he couldn't be that type of player. And I had the opportunity, I think it was 2 years ago when they brought that 83 team back, and I did something for since we were partners with the Sixers. At the radio station, they had asked me to, along with like Matt Murphy and some of the others, to interview some of those legends, Mark Ivoroni, Earl Cureton, and all these guys. Man, it was fun to sit and talk with them. And during my prep, and even talking to them off camera, I would bring up Andrew Toney, and even on camera, and they were just like, "You have no idea how good he was." Yeah. How great of a player he was, and if that foot injury was addressed properly, what that would have looked like for him, and where he would wind up among the NBA greats of all time had he been able to play it out the way that he should have. So it's tough.
Just a real bummer. And like also a guy who I always wonder if he just played in a different era, more modern era, would they have taken it more seriously? Like, because his game fits anywhere, right? He had that dynamic first step. He was able to hit shots off the dribble. He gets to the rim. Like, he has all the ingredients of a player whose game just holds up no matter where you put him. Had enough size, athleticism. So, yeah, just a huge bummer. But at least he was able to win a title. And, in some ways, it's almost better to be like the man, what could have been type guy. Like everyone loves Andrew Toney forever. And it's like, if he just didn't have the injuries, boy, that guy would have been an all-timer. But even that short period, great Philadelphia player.
And the one time, before we moved to number 9, the one time I believe he did come to Philadelphia, they finally convinced him to, he snuck in and he snuck out. Sat up in the suite. No cameras were allowed to pan towards him. And he came in. It was a few years ago. It was a couple of years ago during this Embiid era. And he snuck in and he snuck out. And just like that, true Andrew Toney. And it's all about the team. And it's all about the team with him. And that was the case with many of them. I remember with the Moses deal of his retirement for his jersey, he never allowed them to do it because he wanted all of his teammates' names on the banner up there, and he wouldn't allow them to do so unless that happened. So
a lot of good guys on that team.
Exactly. That's how tight that team was for that one. So number 10, Andrew Toney, as we start off our what ifs for the Philadelphia 76ers. Let's move to number 9, and we stay in the 80s, Kyle. 1986, the Philadelphia 76ers hold the number 1 overall pick. And because Harold Katz decided to work out Brad Daugherty in his driveway, and he didn't shoot well on the basketball court in Harold Katz's driveway, probably among other things, but that's always the one that stands out. He trades the number 1 pick. And what if, Kyle, they just simply kept number 1, drafted Brad Daugherty. You never have to worry about Roy Henson and Jeff Ruhlin and bad feet for Jeff Ruhlin and all of that stuff. And Charles Barkley gets his number 2 that he had been asking for many years thereafter. What if they decided to keep the number 1 pick and select Brad Daugherty to be the 5 next to Charles Barkley?
So, unfortunately for Brad Daugherty, his career was also cut short, right? He basically was out of the league by the time he was 30, I believe. He got injured, I want to say in 1994, and then 94, 95, 95, 96 didn't play, and then retires. And the good thing for the Sixers in this scenario is that they needed him for the period before that. When they needed him was when Charles Barkley was Barkley and everybody else on that Sixers
Charles
team
Shackelford.
In the late 80s and early 90s. That was a great front court partner for him too, right? Because the great thing about Daugherty, he could rebound, he could pass, right? And at that time, when it was a more interior based game than it is today. The ability for those guys to play some, just play off of one another, the quick cuts, the interior passing, playing out of the dunker spot and whatnot, that would have been an electric combination in the front court. And, what happens with Charles if he feels like he has an all-star caliber teammate to help him out during that run? Because Brad Daugherty made, I believe it was 5 all-star teams in 6 years. Very, very good player for a very good Cleveland team that if Michael Jordan and the Bad Boys Pistons are not around, who knows what happens with that team. So if you give Charles another teammate of that quality, who's to say what happens in some of those series where, they're making the playoffs, but they're not really doing much damage. So it's I'm not sure what happens. I don't know. I can't confidently say that Charles wouldn't have asked out or wouldn't have eventually wanted to go elsewhere. But it certainly would have helped to have a teammate of that quality playing alongside Barkley.
Because he had never had one as close as that. Hersey Hawkins made a few all-star teams, maybe 2, I think it was. I definitely know 1, maybe 2, while in the Sixers uniform. But then it was Johnny Dawkins, Rick Mahorn, Mike Jaminski, and all due respect to those players who we look at those teams and how tough they were and, thump and bump with Rick Mahorn and all that cool stuff. Mike Jaminski with the jumpers from the elbow and how good Hersey Hawkins and Johnny Dawkins were with him. Imagine if they were there, but they were playing a level down and they were the 3rd and the 4th. That's your backcourt with Barkley and Brad Daugherty. Charles Barkley may not be asking for that because he never again got that player. As good as Mahorn and Jaminski and all those players were, they were never Brad Daugherty for the career that he had, even with that short time. Never did he have a partnership with anybody on that team that was at that level like he was to be an all-star player in the league consecutively with how he was. So with that front court, with how they would have matched up with other teams in the Eastern Conference, how they would have played off one another because Barkley could play with his back to the basket. Well, same way we saw Jaminski at the elbow. Sometimes Brad Daugherty can knock down that 15-footer, that 17-footer, also play with his back to the basket. And then the passing aspect of it, that angle, all plays into it. So while I agree with you, we don't know what would have happened with Charles Barkley, we would have at least seen what he was asking for right up to the time that he requested that trade, was to play with somebody like that. And he never had that opportunity until he got to Phoenix. And we saw what that outcome was. Got to the NBA Finals in year number 1. Now, I don't know what the front office would have looked like to make that happen here in Philadelphia like they did in Phoenix. But I would hope that with Daugherty, with Barkley, that's your core that you're building around and you find the right pieces to go along with, where you can challenge the Cleveland Cavaliers, challenge Detroit Pistons, the Boston Celtics, the Chicago Bulls later on, where we're not talking about could he be traded, Barkley, to any other organization because of what he would have been with Brad Daugherty.
You're talking about a guy who at his peak is averaging 21, 11, and 3 or 4 assists a game on shooting 53% from the field, and also, as far as I remember, was a decent free throw shooter.
He was.
So he was not like you can just hack this guy and put him on the free throw line. So just a giant missed opportunity there. And you didn't even have to do anything. You just had to sit there and take the guy that everybody was like, that's the guy to take at number 1. So just a very unfortunate trade, self-inflicted wound on this one.
A big miss for the Philadelphia 76ers on that one. Start at the end. the beginning of the end for Charles Barkley and the Philadelphia 76ers. Let's move on to number 8 here on the What If. More in our time right now.
Oh, boy.
We were here for this one. 2017, you draft Markelle Fultz. After trading from 3, you get to 1. Markelle Fultz is the choice. Kyle, what if he just stays healthy and never injures the shoulder? However he injures the shoulder.
So I would also add to what if he just doesn't mess with his shot, right? Like, because having been so close to this story with Markelle, the big thing is that there was a number of things going on, right? Like, the first warning sign was when the Celtics had Markelle in, and Derek has said this on the show, but there was reporting coming out of that building that they were like, this kid's messing with his shot, and not in a good way, right? Like, he went into that workout, and sometimes you say, somebody shot poorly in a workout, and who cares? The Celtics looked at it.
The DJ Edgecombe one.
Yeah. The Celtics looked at it and said, he shot poorly, and we are gravely concerned, and did a great job of getting off that pick and sliding down, getting the guy they wanted all along in Tatum. But the Sixers at that point are thinking, whatever. It's the pre-draft process. We're going to probably set some concerns to the side about whether it's the mental makeup, the background, however you want to call it. And then there's the people making stories up about BMX accidents and motorcycles and all kinds of crazy stuff. At the end of the day, this one is such a big one because it has ramifications everywhere, right? So first one, Markelle Fultz as a prospect with a jump shot was unbelievable, right? Prototype size, athleticism, more than enough athleticism, great finisher around the basket. The one big red flag that maybe we should have paid attention to in college, the free throw numbers were not good. Got to the line, didn't shoot well, should have been paid more attention to in hindsight. But if you get the guy that you think you're getting, a 3-level scoring guard, who also was a very good playmaker coming out of school, it mutes some of the concerns that you had with Ben Simmons at that time, where you could move Simmons into more of that forward-y type of role, or even in an ideal scenario, Fultz is so good that you just have him and Embiid, and you say, hey, I'll trade Ben Simmons at peak value for, could have been Kawhi, it could have been one of these big, it could be Jimmy Butler still, and you roll with Jimmy Butler and Fultz. It could have been Paul George when he's still in his prime. Like, just go down the list. You have one of the most attractive trade chips in the league before people are on to the fact that his stock has depreciated. And then you could go even further. If Markelle Fultz is who Markelle Fultz was supposed to be, do you end up with Tyrese Maxey? Right? You're probably not thinking about taking a smaller guard. You are looking more at wings and maybe front court help to balance out the roster. Now, maybe you just say he's best player available. And frankly, Markelle Fultz, in a ideal world, him and Tyrese Maxey are actually a great fit, right? Markelle is a big, can defend multiple positions type of guard, has the playmaking talent, is still a 3-level scoring type of guy. And you have Maxey as the dynamic, quick, off-ball, push the pace. You can play different styles. Like, there are so many different directions this one could go. It's a real shame for Markelle individually. It was a real shame for the Sixers as a team. And boy, I really was hoping that he would turn out because
yes, I did.
I thought he was a great, great prospect at the time based on watching all those games that year. I also thought he was a good kid, like just dealing with him every day. Like, felt real bad for how that situation unfolded.
Yeah, I liked Jason Tatum at that time when we were talking about the number 3 pick and where things might land in that draft. And I remember I was doing TV at that very moment when the trade was announced. So they asked me to stay longer. I was doing Comcast at the time. The show, the Roundtable show, Daily News Live that it was. And then it happened. Boom, they switch over to new coverage. Can you stay? Can you talk about it? I'm like, yeah. And I remember me and Danny Palmel sitting there next to one another. And Danny was like, I still would take Jason Tatum at number 1. And I was like, I like Tatum too, and I would take him, but I think the guard situation needs to be addressed a little bit more. And I think Fultz fits with Ben Simmons in that backcourt really, really well. Not that Tatum wouldn't, because the wing position is what the wing position is. It was just more of, man, Fultz and Simmons in that backcourt take some of the pressure off of Simmons because of the stuff that we already know that he doesn't want to do. And Fultz is now there. Now you have these two defenders, the way that they will be. And I was still good with it.
Yep.
At number one, where you take Markelle Fultz. I was perfectly fine. Didn't care about what we saw in that workout. I was making excuses for him. Driving from where was he from? DC. Driving from DC. And he was asleep in the car like they said he was. He's tired. He just got up and he's shooting jump shots and it doesn't look great. I saw what I saw with Washington and the team wasn't good. He will be fine with this grouping of talent that he's going to be with the Sixers. And unfortunately, changing that shot screwed it all up. And
even with that, in Summer League, he still had that moment where you were like, that first game.
Well, the Summer League, it was whatever that injury was.
Yeah, Kevin Durant was tweeting about the Hezzy pull-up Jimbos. Yeah. Watch him, another DMV kid saying, oh, this kid's up next, right? Like, they end up, I think they lost that game, right? They played Boston and they lost to Tatum. But people saw
Tatum
that.
Hit like game winner, I think Tatum did.
I believe so. So we still saw that, and there was enough there that you're like, all right, he changed the shot, but still all looks good. And then it was just, I'll never forget the game down in Miami where he pump faked the free throw, and Rich Hoffman actually was down there for that game and had to ask him about it. And Rich would be better to recall the story, but Rich, I think, was basically like, so what happened there? And Markelle tried to just like, oh, I don't know what you're talking about. And it's like, brother, wait till you look on social media. There is no hiding from this.
Nah, so a big time what if for the Sixers, a big miss there. Think they had the right player at the time. Unfortunately, now you spew it off into the whole, you should have taken Jason Tatum at pick number one. Well, guess what? Relationships would have been really screwed up had you taken Jason Tatum after agreeing to a deal the way that the NBA works and basketball works. You don't do that.
I'll also add one last thing before we probably talk about a few of our friends. This is why I care so much about the background stuff. That was one of the main things that I was like, I should have listened more to the things that were being said behind the scenes, because that stuff matters. When these guys are kids coming into a grown man's league, every piece of intel you can get could be the difference.
Everything matters, and all of these matter in your Sixers lives, for your fandom, for all the years you've been watching your hometown team. We're talking about the top 10 what-ifs here on Rank Week. When we come back, we'll get to number 7. I don't know that you are expecting the number 7 that we're about to present to you, but we will do so on the other side when we get back for our Rank Week Top 10 What If Sixers edition right here on the PHLY Sixers Podcast, presented by, I'm going to tell you on the other side. Oh, and I got a story for you guys. Rothman Orthopedics, our presenting sponsor here on the show. During our adventure of trying to get back home, Bree and I, president of basketball ops that she is, my seat partner on the flight, when we finally got on the plane, had a brace on her leg, and I sat next to her. Her leg was extended out towards the window. I was in the aisle seat, and I said, what happened? She said, I tore my meniscus and my ACL. And I said, sister, I'm right here with you. Look at this scar on my knee. I went to Rothman Orthopedics to get mine repaired, and you should too. As soon as we get back home, I'm going to give you the number. You check out my people at Rothman Orthopedics, because they got me right, and they will get you right, hopefully get you right. So if it's something as serious as the ACL, like myself and the person that we met on the plane, or something just a minor little thing, from pickup games to old injuries flaring up from your summer adventures that you're having, Rothman has a team of experts that is here to help with evidence-based care and a commitment to restoring your mobility. They'll get you back out there stronger than ever. And I have to tell you about the Rothman proudly serves dozens of communities across Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Florida, with 30-plus convenient offices, urgent cares, and walk-in centers. They are located 3 in the city right now, Center City, Northeast Philadelphia, and the latest at the Navy Yard. That's where my last visit was. So if you're looking for a place to go, those are easy spots for you to get to in Philadelphia, all across Pennsylvania, New Jersey, and Florida as well. So if the pain is slowing you down this season, slowing your summer down, take the first step. Head to rothmanortho.com/PHLY and schedule your appointment today. Rothman Orthopedics, your summer, your mobility, their mission. All right, so I walked into my garage yesterday, and it felt like a sauna.
I got to tell you, Devon, this Philadelphia heat, especially coming off a cool period, no joke.
All right, so here's what I did. I got like 10 bags of ice, and I made myself an ice bath to stay cool instead of turning on the AC.
But why wouldn't you just turn on your air conditioning?
Well, I was trying to be energy efficient. Go green, go birds, right? And a little power dribble. Make sure I stay away from it.
Yeah, but, instead of icing yourself out, you could just check out Pico's energy saving rebates. They've got deals on Energy Star cooling equipment that actually work, and they cut down your bills.
Hold on. So no more ice?
Unless it's an ice cold beer, Devon, we don't need to talk about ice.
That makes a lot of sense.
So everybody just head to pico.com/ways to save. They've got tips for everything. Heating, cooling, lighting, you name it. Don't resort to ice like my friend Devon over here.
All right, welcome back to the PHLY Sixers Podcast here during Rank Week presented by Rothman Orthopedics.
Devon, Severance got 27 Emmy nominations. We're right behind for that beautiful Pico right there.
If we don't get an award for that, that we can just throw down
Give
on
me
this
a
table,
Webby or something.
that we can
whatever.
throw down on this table right here, I'm going to be disappointed. So real fast, everybody, want to tell you all about our new collection. You can see Kyle right now modeling the new Philly collection. Look at the shirt right there at the top left of the screen and right here live during the show. That is our new Philly collection starting off this summer. Philly collection with our basketball side. We got that one. We got the Spectrum shirts, the Iverson Step Over Tyronn Lue there. We have the PHLY normal logo branded with more of a different theme there for the different cultures that we have. Of course, we got the pretzel shirt and the mixed mascot shirt that I think is going to be kind of popular. This is the Philly collection dropping right now at allphly.com. If you would like to look like us, I have the Spectrum shirt on right here.
Look at that.
Right now, has it in multiple colors, black, orange, blue, red, and you can go get this one as well, just like Kyle's PHLY shirt, all at allphly.com. Our new Philly collection.
Devon and I may have had some input on the shirt
we
that I'm
may
wearing.
have.
May
yeah.
or may not. Can't take too much.
So not only
credit
are
for
we
it.
getting awards for our commercials, we're getting some...
graphic design is my passion.
Exactly. So go check it out, allphly.com, to get your latest at the store.allcitynetwork.com as well. And go get some new gear, everybody, as we refresh our merchandise on the site. All right, now we have to get to number 7. So while we get to number 7, we're just going to tell you about the big deal, everybody.
Oh, yeah.
We got the big deal here presented by Cherry Hill Kia, and this is a huge, huge deal when it comes to the Philadelphia 76ers. So, and presented by Kia of Cherry Hill. Again, I know people buy Kias elsewhere. I just don't know why. So drive home in your new Kia today, just minutes from all bridges, available online 24/7 at kiaofcherryhill.com. Folks, Matt Geiger. Hang his jersey in the Raptors.
The big deal that never happened.
And you're like, Matt Geiger, all this other stuff, and you're talking about Matt Geiger? Well, you may not have had that 2001 Sixers finals run if it weren't for Matt Geiger, Kyle.
So for those who are either too young to remember or have blocked this out of their minds for whatever reason, there are two different versions of the story here. One says there was a 4-team, 12-player trade proposal. Another says there was a 6-team, 24-player trade proposal. The critical thing here is that the Sixers were going to trade Allen Iverson and Matt Geiger in the summer of 2000 to the Detroit Pistons And they were the main pieces of the trade coming back to Philadelphia, as far as we understand it.
Because of the multi-team trade.
Were to be Eddie Jones, Glenn Rice, Jerome Williams, and Dale Ellis, who, Devon, I believe you said pre-show was as tail end Dale Ellis.
Yeah.
And notably, that was right before Allen Iverson's MVP season. It was right before the 2001 finals run. And so you look at both sides of it. Obviously, you don't get the iconic MVP season in Philadelphia for Iverson. You don't get all the love and the lore, the step over game. We just showed the T-shirt for that, like all the individual moments that you got during that season, the All-Star game, that turns into the Mutombo trade because of things happening in the locker room at the All-Star game that year. And all of this did not happen because Matt Geiger had a 15% trade kicker for $3.3 million, and he said he wasn't waiving it, and so that effectively gave him a no trade clause. The other part of it that we don't talk about because it's not as important to Philadelphia, how does that change the Pistons' future, right? Because a few years later, they would go on to win the title in 2004 with, notably, not Allen Iverson, but Chauncey Billups and Rasheed Wallace and Ben Wallace and Tayshaun Prince.
Rip Hamilton.
And if you trade for it, I can't believe I left out Coatesville's own Rip Hamilton. If you don't trade for Iverson, how much different does your future look, right? That's a dramatic shift from where they were at. They're probably much better more immediately than they would have been otherwise. But do they eventually climb the mountain? I'm not sure about that. So just changes that could happen everywhere. But certainly, you trade Iverson after 4 years because Larry Brown threatens to quit. I just can't even imagine a future where I didn't see Allen Iverson's MVP year in Philadelphia.
Yeah, and I remember that summer, training camp. After the summer, they come back for training camp, and I remember media day. I wasn't doing this yet. Kyle wasn't doing it. Derek wasn't.
Yeah, I was I would have been 10 years old
right.
at that point.
So I just remember at that point, it's television and newspaper of how you found everything out. And I remember the photo. First it was the video, and I remember the photo of what it looked like inside the Wells Fargo Center where they had him. Because the crowd was so big, it was out in the concourse. Because I remember the window from the doors where you could see everything, and the crowd, the media crowd, was so huge because he's still here.
Yeah,
he's going into this season after a tumultuous offseason where the coach wanted you gone, said I can't do this anymore, and the only reason he's back is because Matt Geiger has a trade kicker. Because if you don't know Matt Geiger's contract, everybody, he had signed a 6-year. $48 million deal that was considered a big contract at the time. He was a big acquisition from Charlotte, and that's why his agent was able to have that trade kicker in his deal. And man, did you need that, every bit of that 15% kicker in that deal. Otherwise, we don't know what would have happened. Eddie Jones was a damn good player. He was an all-star.
So was Glenn Rice. Glenn Rice was a good basketball player as well.
So those were two guys that were going to come in here and be immediate faces of this organization. But Allen Iverson is Allen Iverson. All right. So what if Matt Geiger didn't give the finger to the Pistons?
And so real quick to close this one out, there was a story done during the 2001 NBA Finals. And Matt Geiger, in an interview, gave a quote where this is how he described the situation. Quote, I looked at Detroit and didn't think Allen and I would have been better off there. So the decision was easy. So Matt Geiger wasn't, he claims he wasn't thinking about that trade kicker and the $3.3 million. He's looking out for him and his buddy, Allen Iverson. So Matt Geiger, thank you from the bottom of our hearts for not allowing that trade to go through.
Allen Iverson loves Matt Geiger, and so do Sixer fans.
I may not be here if it was not for that Iverson year that really kind of jolted my basketball fandom. So thank you, Matt Geiger, and your stupid tribal tattoos.
And that T-shirt may have never been as popular. That jersey may not have been as popular. without Allen Iverson.
It's not iconic with Eddie Jones and Glenn Rice.
It's not the same. Not the same. So that is our big deal. Presented by Kia. I know people buy Kias elsewhere. I just don't know why. Drive home in your new Kia today. Just minutes from all bridges or available online 24/7 at jeepofcherryhill.com. We move to number 6 here on our top 10. Number 6. What if they simply just re-signed Jimmy Butler in the summer of 2019 and maybe Tobias Harris is then not re-signed because of that? And maybe JJ decides to stick around too.
So here's the thing with this one. The most immediate impact, I think if you re-sign Jimmy, you're trading Ben Simmons.
Okay.
That was everyone, and Jimmy has made comments to the effect of someone said, can you control this guy, right? And that was kind of the breaking point for him with the Sixers as an organization.
And that was more specifically Brett Brown.
So I think all it would have taken is if they've really believed in Jimmy over Ben, right? They would have fired Brett Brown to say, yeah, we'll bring back Jimmy.
Right.
We'll build the team around him and Joel and figure things out from there. I think their calculus at the time, and I think this was, I include myself, I include basically all of Philadelphia. There are maybe 1% of fans who would have said, yeah, I want to get rid of Ben Simmons specifically to keep Jimmy Butler. People didn't view it as that, as a dichotomy at the time, but that was all the intel behind the scenes, was that Ben was bristling at, hey, I'm the point guard of this team. I've been treated as the point guard of this team. And then this guy came in the playoffs and you just gave him the ball and there was no plan for me, right? So after they made the Jimmy decision, Ben gets the max extension and, all the pieces fall into place there. If you ultimately decide on Jimmy over Ben, you can trade Ben that summer for an absolute haul, 100%. Right? Because he's still at maximum possible value. You still have most of the league saying, this is a guy who will eventually figure it out, right? 2019, he's coming off of his first All-Star season. The next 2 years, he makes 2 more All-Star teams. He makes first team All-Defense in 2019-20, in addition to being top 5 Defensive Player of the Year and third team All-NBA. And that's sort of what people were thinking of. That's this guy's trajectory at that time. Number 1 overall pick, super productive, already an All-Star in the second year he's played. You would have been able to trade him for almost anything that you wanted, right? And that's the big what if. It's obviously Jimmy was a great fit with Joel. He does all this great stuff in Miami, and you probably are able to hit higher heights here than you would have otherwise. But it's also because you would have immediately been able to make a massive trade
100%.
To get a ready-made real guy or whatever it was that you trade Ben for. Who knows? Who knows what would have happened from there?
What if?
What if, Devon?
What does it do for Joel Embiid if Jimmy Butler stays here? And that's his running mate, along with whomever possibly is coming in the Ben Simmons trade. What if? Because you don't.
That's an important thing,
The
too.
injuries you cannot control. Maybe you can, with some small things, but you can't control that. And then this is already after we just touched on the Markelle Fultz piece. There were already the problems with Markelle Fultz. So you still are in search of some more help. What if that, in fact, plays out differently and Joel and Jimmy go along, and we know how much Joel Embiid respects Jimmy Butler.
Yep.
We saw Jimmy Butler carry the Miami Heat 2 times to the NBA Finals where he was the best player. And with all due respect to Bam Adebayo and some of these others, no one, not even close to Joel Embiid as a number 2. And if they built the team properly, who knows how that plays out for the Sixers if Jimmy Butler stays. JJ Redick maybe.
I was going to say, maybe JJ Redick stays at that point. I don't think so, because it seemed like JJ was just after, I want the most money I can get, and respect to him for that. But just a whole lot of things that could have gone differently.
A lot of things. What if Jimmy Butler stays instead of 12, and maybe James Harden never happens, all of that. But could have been another all-star level player coming back for Ben Simmons, as Kyle laid out there. For our number 6, what if the Sixers simply re-signed Jimmy Butler in 2019? The ripple effects of it all.
I might have bumped that up higher, but we'll see what's next on the list.
All right, you got it, man. And that's the thing, too. In the chat, you might say, why is that so down on the list? That should be way higher. Well, again, there's a lot, and there's a lot to sift through. Order is tough. Let's talk about it more when we get to number 5, all the way up to number 1 on the other side, right here on the PHLY Sixers Podcast. What If? Sixers Edition, presented by Rothman Orthopedics.
And guys, I have to tell you about our wonderful friends at Cherry Hill Kia. If you're looking for amazing deals and super low lease payments, Kia of CherryHill.com is the place to be. They're celebrating Memorial Day savings all month long. Oh, wait, it's not Memorial Day. We're in July, but you're still celebrating savings at Kia of CherryHill.com.
Independence.
Where you can choose. Exactly. Where it's the July 4th. It's freedom, baby. Choose from over 450 new Kias, including Telluride, Sportages, K5s, Carnivals, Celtos, Souls, and more. I got to tell you, Kia is the hottest automotive brand in the country for a reason. 7 of their models received 2025 Car and Driver Editor's Choice Awards. That's amazing considering more than 450 models were tested and only 20 models industry-wide received this award. Combine that with the best warranty in the automotive business, 10 years, 100,000-mile powertrain, and 5 years, 60,000-mile bumper-to-bumper. Stop in today. Tell them PHLY sent you and receive a $100 restaurant.com gift card just for taking a test drive or completing a trade appraisal. I know people buy Kias elsewhere. I just don't know why. So drive home in your new Kia today, just minutes from all bridges, or available online 24/7 at kiaofcherryhill.com. I can't believe I was like in the Memorial Day mood. Can't read. I can't read correctly coming off of that Vegas trip.
Vegas will do that to you. Vegas will do that to you. Everything stays in Vegas. All right, we got to tell you now about our good friends from Parx Casino. Folks, the Excite Center, I've told you about this before, having to do shows there for sports shows from there, and posted up right outside the Excite Center and the sports book, just to, not too far apart from one another. And it was just an easy place to navigate. Great atmosphere. Great people roaming around, and the Excite Center is one of the many things that I do love about Parx Casino, which is my casino of choice. Parx Casino is Pennsylvania's #1 casino and is close to Philadelphia, located in Bensalem. All you have to do is take the Street Road exit off of I-95 and the PA Turnpike. The Excite Center is the state-of-the-art entertainment venue located inside Parx Casino, and let me tell you about some of the shows that we have coming up. Friday, KC and the Sunshine Band at the Excite Center, 8 p.m. Go get some tickets, still available. Doors open at center. Well, actually, you know what? I'm kidding, because I just simply wanted to tell you about, if you didn't do this before, it's sold out. You can't miss KC and the Sunshine Band. That's sold out. All right, no big deal. Maybe you can check in with something else, where you have Philly Jazz Night at Parx coming up there as well on Wednesday, July 23rd. You had a comedy night that you would have been able to get to if it wasn't already sold out. All of these things are taking place at Parx Casino, and I'm saying this now because Parx has been a sponsor of ours for a while. We tell you about all the great entertainment, the shows that are there, and if you've missed out, that's because you weren't listening to us. You got to get on in there and check out the great stuff going on at Parx Casino right now. So if you want to go check them out, visit parxcasino.com to buy tickets for all shows. Pre-game the shows at their amazing beer garden. Get some great food at the great restaurants as well. Maybe play, some slots, roulette cards, whatever your choice is. Parx Casino, this is how you win. You must be 21 and over. Gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER. Welcome back to the PHLY What If? Sixers Podcast edition. We are now in the top 5, Kyle.
Uh-oh.
Let's see where we go. Number 5. What if the Sixers did not draft Larry Hughes at pick number 8 in 1998, instead went with either Paul Pierce or Dirk Nowitzki, 2 Hall of Famers that have won championships in their careers?
So I think Paul Pierce is the one that gets discussed more, because it was, I think, the more realistic option from what we knew about their preferences at the time.
Larry Brown's connection to Kansas. Paul Pierce was projected to be a top 3 pick before the draft. Somehow he kept falling, and that's where you're like, he's falling, just take him. Why? We don't care.
Yeah. So that's maybe a little bit more realistic that could and should have happened. Missing Dirk there really hurt. Like, and this is no disrespect to Paul Pierce, who was a very good player, was the lead scorer on that 2008 title team for Boston. And once he gets all that, but Dirk Nowitzki is like a era-defining player. Like, changed the sport, won an MVP. He was top 3 in MVP voting 3 consecutive years. He makes all NBA, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11,
wow.
12 seasons in a row. He was
Wow.
at least third team all NBA. And I believe there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 first team all NBA selections during that run.
I didn't realize that.
He was really, really, really damn good for a long time. And I know that he had some playoff issues there for a bit, but like one of the most unique and gifted offensive players ever. And just imagining now, do I think Larry Brown would have properly used Dirk Nowitzki? I'm not sure, because that was not really his type of player. I do think Paul Pierce had more of the two-way stuff that Larry Brown tends to value. But either way, you draft Larry Hughes instead of 2 easy Hall of Famers, right? And just, you were always searching for that next guy to put next to Iverson, and you never found him.
And that's the thing, because the one we always talk about is Pierce. What would that look like with Dirk Nowitzki? How would they play off of one another? Allen Iverson respects talent.
Yeah.
He recognizes it. And if he sees that in you early, you got him. Even with someone like Kyle Korver who can just shoot.
Yep.
That was his guy. Matt Geiger, we talk about. His guy. Theo Ratliff, all those players that he played with, those guys you saw match up. So you pair him with Dirk Nowitzki, and Nowitzki figures it out maybe in year 3 or year 4.
He was third team all NBA in his 3rd season.
Exactly. So if that works out that way.
Which, by the way, was 2000, 2001. Anybody remember anything about that?
Yeah, a little bit.
Good timing to become an all NBA player.
Yeah. So, but to go to the other side with Paul Pierce. We're just, I mean, when we say the what ifs, one that we didn't put on here because we don't know how true it was. Of course, I think it was accurate because I remember at the time Phil Jackson, the all-time great, reported it that Billy King had a trade in play that could have landed Tracy McGrady to the Sixers for George Lynch and I can't remember who it was. Was it Larry Hughes? Might have been. I don't know, but
that one I don't remember.
I think it was those two for Tracy McGrady. But the point of it is, this one was right there. Yeah. So if you get a player like Paul Pierce or Dirk, as Kyle pointed out, what would that look like? We always talked about also with him needing that number 2, and that number 2 never materialized to that level of that player. It was too late for Chris Webber. It was too late for, Derek Coleman was Derek Coleman, but it was never anything close to what these two were with their careers, winning championships, winning MVPs, all NBAs, multiple-time All-Stars. What if Larry Hughes was not the choice and you decided to go with either of those other 2?
By the way, Paul Pierce's stat line in 2000, 2001, so in that it talked about Dirk was third team All-NBA, 25.3 points a game, 6.4 rebounds, 3.1 assists, 1.7 steals, shot 45% from the field, 38% from 3. 75% from the free throw line.
And he got to the line a lot.
Yeah. I think he got to the line, looks like 9 times a game.
9 times.
Now, he's probably not scoring 25 a game playing next to Iverson, but the fact that he had the ability to is the important thing.
Yeah, so what if Larry Hughes was not selected over Paul Pierce and Dirk Nowitzki, who went 9 and 10? Was it 9 and 10?
I believe so.
9 and 10.
Because that's the thing, right? It wasn't like, hey, you took Larry Hughes and then Dirk Nowitzki was taken with like the 55th pick. These guys were right there in the same consideration, and you blew it.
And let's not forget, Dirk was traded from Milwaukee for Robert Traylor to the Dallas Mavericks. So Dirk was 9, Paul Pierce was 10 in that draft. How about that? What if Larry Hughes was not taken at that spot? By the way, if you get those 2 right, as good as Bonzi Wells was, he was 11. Doliak, Keon Clark, Michael Dickerson. You're getting the guys right there. those two of it. All right, let's
painful to look at all these years later.
Let's move on to number 4. We talked about this gentleman a little bit earlier. What if whatever happened has nothing to do with Jimmy Butler at this point? Ben Simmons never loses his confidence, and then we see what happens in Game 7 of the series against the Atlanta Hawks as the number 1 seed, and it plays out the way that it does. What if Ben Simmons?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like we've relitigated his career so many times.
Look at the photo. Look at that, Kyle. Look at that.
I don't want to.
That's his lasting.
I'm so sick of looking at that.
That's his lasting image, and
which really is a shame,
right?
Like,
because that's his defining moment, and it should not be.
That's the defining moment of his entire career. And you think about the flashes that we saw early in his career. It's crazy that it ended up there because this guy, look. No one's throwing a parade over first-round playoff series performances, right? So I don't need to overstate what he did against Hassan Whiteside or some of these other bozos that they played in first-round series. But Ben had playoff moments, right? I always remember in that first series against Miami. I was down there. He ran the fake DHO with JJ Redick and just absolutely punched one in crunch time. And you're like, man, there are just not that many guys with that type of burst and athleticism at any size, let alone
no back issues at 6'10". That point. He was
physically is just one of the very few guys in his tier in the entire league. And it went from, it's not that he was ever a willing shooter, but he went from at least all right, I'll try some stuff from the mid range to I'm not even looking at the rim beyond a certain point, right? So it just deteriorated in such a horrible way. The back issue on top of that, you can see very clearly he's not near the athlete he used to be. Just only in Philadelphia does this stuff happen, man.
A shoulder, a back, 2 cornerstone guys.
I always say it from half-baked. The doctor said I need a backiotomy.
And then the one who's still left, and he's still dealing with his injuries, Joel Embiid. And as you said, only in Philadelphia. So I just look at the Simmons thing, and there's so much to it because even after that in 21, where they should have flat out destroyed the Atlanta Hawks, folks, period. You don't lose 3 on your home floor as the number 1 seed. You just don't. They did. Only in Philadelphia.
Against that team, too. You got cooked by, on the back end, Lou Williams, Kevin Huerter, who's done basically nothing of consequence since.
Yeah. So the thing for me was then the offseason where he disappears, he goes out to LA, and he also, they're trying to go out there and convince him to come to training camp after a while. The reports were that Doc Rivers tried to get in contact with him, but he wouldn't return his call. Ben allegedly later on says, well, he knows where I live. Well, you're not answering the phone. What, are you supposed to just come knock on the door and expect you to be there and welcome him in? Come on in. Let's have some tea and some. What are they supposed to do at that point? And then eventually he returns and he's at practice, but he's only there physically. He's not really participating.
People thought there was a cell phone in his pocket.
Which was just a rolled up jersey.
It was erroneous, but it was just it showed you the state of things.
George Niang didn't even play with him and can't stand him because
nobody's ever hated a teammate more that they never played with than George Niang hated Ben Simmons.
And we all
know
the
contempt that he had was just
and even
special.
The people who couldn't stand Simmons because of all of that stuff you talked about with the non-shooting. But look how he impacted things and the defense.
It's a two-way
passing. Player. And all, he was so good in that Miami series when they were closing out Miami. Goran Dragic was still there, and he was still really good. I remember Goran Dragic smacking Ben Simmons in the back of his head. That's just like the ultimate. You bust our ass, and I'm ticked off, and I gotta resort to something stupid. And that's how good Ben Simmons was. I mean, he was that good where he was ticking off. Ben Simmons is quiet. He doesn't talk trash and none of that stuff. He just plays, and he was so good that he got two Goran Dragics that bad where he had to resort to doing something as silly as that just because they were about to get eliminated. That's how good that guy was. To Kyle's point, if they would have decided to then trade Ben Simmons and just keeping Jimmy Butler, you would have gotten a haul for him. a haul. Even when we were talking about he was on his way out because of all the bad stuff, Tyrese Halliburton was the conversation piece. James Harden leaving Houston because he's now ready to go. Those are the players that we're talking about possibly coming back in any potential hypothetical Ben Simmons
They
deal.
still ended up getting out on the Ben Simmons business at a good enough time.
Yeah, they did.
Boy,
yeah, they did.
if you got out earlier.
What if? What if? All right, we get to the final three here on our Sixers edition of What If, the rank week. Kyle, I'll throw this one to you as I have all show. What if the NBA never stepped in and let Sam Hinkie continue to do what Sam Hinkie wanted to do?
So this is a very difficult one.
Is this worthy of top three because of how important it is with the rebuild? And
I think so, because one of the issues that they've run into was a lack of clarity in vision, right? Whatever you think about Hinkie, and he certainly had a mixed track record with the draft picks, right? Joel was the big ace in the hole in terms of the high picks.
Yeah.
The other guys, not so much. But there were a lot of really good margin moves, like getting Robert Covington, getting TJ McConnell. They drafted Jeremy Grant in the second round, right? Now, Jeremy Grant didn't do much of consequence in Philadelphia, but he gets moved by the next regime for Ersan Ilyasova, and you reap some short-term benefits. Had you kept Jeremy Grant a little bit longer, that's a long-term contributor. That's a forward. That's a guy who can help with some of the things that. So there were plenty of hits there. I think more importantly, the whole organization felt in sync in a way that they just didn't for a while after that, right? They were chasing their tail a little bit. You bring in the Colangelos, and all of a sudden you're skipping steps and you're trying to win definitely before you should have been pushing major chips in. Like signing JJ Redick, cool. You use the cap space that you got. You bring in a player who fits with your guys. But as you start making these win now moves and trying to make everything about, well, we have the window open, you don't even know what you have yet was the thing, right? And so then you start borrowing against your future.
Yeah.
And you end up in this spot where you're not good enough to get into that inner circle of contenders. You never break past the second round. But also, now you don't have as many incoming picks. Your draft capital is not what it was when the Colangelos take over, right? So I don't know what would have happened with Sam Hinkie. I don't know that he would have been able to sign some of these free agents they got. I don't know what his draft evals would have been. I don't know what would have happened. But it is an interesting hypothetical because it doesn't just reflect on what would Sam Hinkie do. The world where he stays is a world where Sixers ownership has a level of conviction and is able to stave off the league and say, we're not going to allow you to step in and argue that we should run our team a different way, right? And then we see what happens in Oklahoma City. They essentially replicate, in a lot of ways, the same model. Got away with it in part because they're in Oklahoma City, and they're not as reliant on the high picks. They end up getting Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. They end up getting Jalen Williams with a later lottery pick, so on and so forth. But you see when a good executive with a long timeline is able to play that process out, they reap the benefits, they win a title, and they are set up for a long time to come with lots of young talent and young guys who can continue growing together. I have no idea if the Sixers ever get close to that type of team that we just saw with the Thunder, but I would have been very interested to find out, what does the final version of all that look like?
For people who are just coming in, we have our community already, so most people know how we felt about that rebuild and all that stuff. I was not the biggest fan, understood it, but I did not like the approach of how they were going about it. All right, let's move on. Once they were in it, he had the one hit, and that was Joel Embiid. And he needed luck to do that because Joel Embiid broke his foot right before a workout with the number one Cleveland Cavaliers who were drafting that year. Had he not broken his foot, are the Sixers ending up with Andrew Wiggins? Are they trading back because they don't like Andrew Wiggins? Because Jabari Parker was going number 2 to the Bucks. What is happening there? And if you do that while you hit on the margins of McConnell and Covington None of that stuff matters if you never get the franchise face, which was Joel Embiid. And sure, you get some other things that eventually leads to Simmons being selected, eventually leading to Markelle Fultz being selected. But his track record of drafting just wasn't good.
Yeah.
I don't know what it would have looked like, because at least with Sam Presti, we know that, though.
Right. He had a previous drafting track
Durant,
record.
Westbrook, Harden, and Westbrook and Harden were, wait a minute, how are you taking them over player X?
Westbrook was more of a project.
I thought Tyreke Evans was going to be selected over Russell Westbrook. No, Russell Westbrook was the right pick. James Harden, same thing. How are you taking him here when you already have Russell Westbrook? Mm-hmm. What are you doing? So at least Sam Presti had that. Not forgetting about what the league stepping in and doing. We're just talking about the general managers and their draft selections. Then he bounces back and he comes back because he does have an opportunity to do it again, Sam Presti, because of the Bennetts and the belief in Sam Presti that he does make the trade for Shea. Then he drafts Williams, that none of us are sitting there saying. He drafts Holmgren at number 2, and all of that stuff works out. And then the other things on the margin that Kyle talks about with Presti later on that now has led to them being the champions from the 24-25 season. I don't know that Sam Hinkie would have been good enough. I know he wasn't worthy of him asking him, can he have a 10-year contract? I know that much. I know that. But I also don't know what it would have looked like had he decided to, had they let him stay there and keep going. Maybe we would have gotten to see that next version of Sam Hinkie, and that's where he would have been able to really cook and finish it out. And then he goes on, and maybe he is a 10-year GM because of how good he started it and what he turned it into following all of that.
It's so hard to say. And look, really this one comes down to, what if he had just not taken Jahlil Okafor? Because that's the decision that ultimately...
Porzingis, maybe?
Porzingis was the one that I think they were mostly... Sure. That was probably in play there.
Yeah.
But if you just take anybody else, right? Okafor was a bad pick, both because the player was bad and because he became the face of, this is what happens when you do this, right? He had the incident at the nightclub in Old City. He had he went 100 whatever miles an hour over the Ben Franklin Bridge. He had the public fight with Boston fans. And so that became just okay, the league looks at all of that, and they look at a kid who previously had, good reputation as a kid, went to Duke, went to a big time program, they go to the national title, they do all of this, and then he comes to Philadelphia, and it's almost like you wrote a movie script, oh, the big bad Sixers ruined this kid. Yeah. And that is ultimately what made, it was the final straw that the league comes in and is what the hell are you guys doing? This is not sustainable. Because if you get through that year, right? I don't know ultimately if you take Porzingis what happens that year. But let's just say you get through that year. So you have Porzingis, who was good as a rookie, right? Flashes right away. Then you get Joel Embiid. And you have Dario Saric, who early in his career, people were like, hey, this guy can do some things and plays well off these guys. All of a sudden, you have a good front court rotation. Then you're just looking for, all right, who are the guards? Robert Covington is in there. We got a wing, another 3-4 type of guy. And all of a sudden you're starting to build something, right? There's something
big team.
There's something in place there. It's not just hey, here's a bunch of guys just kind of, you would have an identity of some sort. And then we see what happens from there. So I don't know if he would have been good enough, right? He did not have the previous track record of Presti. What I do know is that by forcing him out and installing the Colangelos, that leads to the burner scandal. That leads to his exit. That leads to this shadow cabal running the team. There are so many different directions that this goes because of that. It's not that I believe Sam Hinkie ultimately was a title winning executive. I just don't know.
Yeah.
It's that by forcing him out, you did not help the organization ultimately reach the mountaintop.
And they were the team is, because eventually the talent came together. Brett Brown did a decent job as a coach. They were good enough to, again, be a contending team, get to the second round, projected to be at least an Eastern Conference representative for the finals, Eastern Conference finals, and maybe even the NBA finals. So if they were to keep him and he did find a way to put this team together and wrap everything up, who knows? Who knows? But like you said, the Burnergate stuff, that never happens. That never happens because Colangelo would have never been hired, and that we wouldn't have to worry about that. By the way, while we were out in Vegas, I saw something that somebody was saying that Jerry Colangelo still thinks Brian got a raw deal.
Was that,
saw that?
Mike Sealski at the Inquirer, I believe, wrote that story? I'll go double check that because I don't want to wrongly attribute that. I think that was from Sealski. But
my man, no, he had to be let go.
Well, the funniest part of that story, because I read it, I wish I remembered who wrote it. Mike, you're getting the credit,
yes.
Whether you wrote it or not. He referred to his son as a young man. He's 60 years old today, and when all this happened was 53. Yes. This is not some college kid who was in over his head.
Yeah.
Just anyway, enough about that family. I don't have any nice things to say.
All right, let's get to number 2, the final 2. So if Burnergate is not on here, these have to be some real tough things of the what if for the Sixers history. Number 2.
I don't know where you're going.
What if they keep Cale?
Oh!
And do not...
For Devon, this is number 1 with a bullet.
And do not acquire Zaire Smith.
So, again, this is a butterfly effect moment. You draft Markelle and you just say, we're keeping him. Number 1, you have the type of player that they just have struggled to get on the team for this entire era. Right. So
and
that
finally get one with Covington that wasn't even drafted. You had to find that guy.
So that's a big deal. Gives you that type of guy. Let's say in that scenario, you still make the Jimmy Butler trade. So you have Jimmy Butler, Markelle, Ben, Joel Embiid, JJ. Like it's a very good team, right? But you don't have that extra pick from Miami. That at the time people are talking up the value of that pick ends up not being super valuable because Miami somehow is always good even when you don't expect them to be. Mm-hmm. So you don't make the Tobias Harris trade at all. You run it through that season with Ben, Jimmy, Markelle, Joel. You have Landry Shamet. You have some other role players, and you say, let's let the season play out. We're not pushing all our chips in. We don't have that many, so let's play it a little more close to the vest and conservatively.
And maybe that leads to Jimmy just simply coming back.
And it's frankly, it's simply easier because you're not considering giving Tobias Harris that money because he's already in the building. Mm-hmm. So you give Jimmy Butler his money. Maybe you still are in the trade Simmons thing we talked about before. But most importantly, Markelle is on a rookie deal for the next 3 seasons. So you have the ability to say, who can we go get, right? Maybe we can convince somebody to come join these guys, right? Another vet who can come in here, and that's the final piece. Now, at that point, you have already built up a season's worth of reps with Jimmy Butler, with Joel Embiid. Yep. You're not starting from scratch. And whoever's coming in is, all right, now they get a full season. Unfortunately, it's the COVID shortened season and all the weirdness that happened because of that. But you're not immediately in this, our salary cap books are just full and there's nothing we can do, right? So that can go just limitless directions, right? And then the one that was in the notes when I ended up recording a quick short on this for our social today, Mike Scott also never gets in a fight with Eagles fans in a parking lot at a game. So a not iconic moment, but a weird moment in recent Sixers history also gets lost to time.
Good times. Look, Sixer fans, have at it.
Our guy.
Look at have at it with the Sixers uniform for the workout when Cale had the workout while we were there. Fun times, man. Nova stuff was, but so I obviously look at this one a little bit different, so I'll bring it from a different perspective. He was ready to ready and comfortable staying home to play for the hometown team. Of course, Toney is working for the organization at the time. I'm doing the radio stuff. And I remember the first time I brought him up on the radio was when he committed to Nova the summer going into his senior season. And I did so because I just, obviously I'm proud, but I wanted to let everybody know, hey, my cousin's pretty good and he's going to one of the top schools in the country. And I think he's going to be pretty good. And we're already in the business and I know people already. So I was talking to people around the league saying, hey, watch out for my cousin, so on and so forth. And then he's Kale to us. Jack is on the show from time to time, his dad. And then he turned into Markelle Bridges for everybody else out there. And while I felt like I was proud and I wanted to do this for him and introducing him to everybody else that are basketball fans in the area who may not know him because he comes from Great Valley and he's playing out there, that I did it to put at least some notice for the fan base that I had from the radio part. And then he became Markelle Bridges, and I didn't have to do that anymore because that's how good he became. Mm-hmm. He became a top 10 pick. He became a lottery pick pre-draft of where people thought he was going to go. I remember he was working out at that time, he worked out for the Sixers. Obviously, the picture shown there. Cleveland was heavy on him. New York was heavy on him. I think it was L.A. was also the Clippers. L.A. was interested in him, and a few other teams in that range from like 7 to 12 where they were really interested in Kale at that time. And we were so convinced that after knowing that he was comfortable doing so, we would talk a lot of different stuff of him staying at home and playing. So much so that I've introduced you to, not of course just Jack, but you met Corey, his younger brother, me, Corey, and Jack's other son. We all went to the gym one morning. It had to be a week before the draft. And those guys went up to New York for the draft. I stayed back because I did the show from the press conference, the facility that night. And I remember seeing Derek and Kyle there. I went around high-fiving those guys a little bit later after it happened. But we were so into the Sixers thing of Simmons is wearing 25, what's Kale going to wear?
You're not even thinking about the possibility of, they're going to take him and trade him. You're like, what number is he going to wear?
We were doing this a week before the draft. So I'm like, number 5 looks pretty good on him because he's got the slender frame, right? We're throwing all kinds of numbers and stuff, and it was really cool. And when he got selected, I'm texting back and forth with them, see you tomorrow for the press conference. Because I had already talked to the Sixers people, and they're like,
and what was it? It was tomorrow. 12 minutes that it lasted?
It was a little bit longer than that, but it felt like it was only 12 minutes because of how fast he got moved. And, yeah, that was a tough one. And then the Zaire Smith thing doesn't work out. You make the deal where Zaire Smith is a choice, but even if you went DiVincenzo, that might have been a better return for the Sixers because you're going to get a player that's...
Well, not might have. It definitely would have been a better return.
Yeah, it would have been a better return, but... yeah, so from my perspective, that's how tough that one was. And here he is he's going to be going into year number 8.
The other thing with him, too, is like that we didn't even get to is he's been the guy that's just always available on a team that needs those guys who are productive and are always available. And you had him and you gave him away.
Gave him away. So what if Markelle Bridges is never traded? No Zaire Smith. Who knows how long Kale will be here. The one thing that I did have a concern about, if he did stay that year, you talk about Jimmy Butler, you can't convince me that they would not have tried to ask for Markelle in that deal.
Because they would have for
player.
Sure.
Yep.
But I think the counterpoint there is that
you get Covington.
Tibbs was looking for the guys who are like, you're going to come help me win right now.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And I also think the Sixers gave, I don't want to say nothing of consequence because Covington and Dario at the time were guys that people liked around here.
Yeah.
But it's like you're not giving away future picks. That Jimmy had effectively tanked his value to the point that I think they could have held the line.
Yeah. Would have been fun. Would have been fun, folks. But going into year
Wasn't
8,
to
man,
be.
Wasn't to be.
So tell me, what's number one, Mr. Gibbons?
I think we all know what number one is. It's not just a Sixers moment. This is an NBA basketball moment. What if Kawhi Leonard never makes that shot in Game 7 and you get to overtime? You were there.
I was there. And this one, honestly, for me personally, it's for me personally, this one is lower on the list for some of our other ones. Because I have never been convinced they were beating that Bucks team, let alone beating the Warriors. I know the Warriors were dealing with all the injuries.
But get to the conference finals because you never did.
You never did.
And you never know how that changes their mindset going into the next year, the year after that.
Yeah.
How easy it might have been for Jimmy Butler to stay after that.
I always read you guys the stats that Giannis put up against the Sixers that year. He put up like 45, 16, and 8, which is like, bro, those are video game numbers. So the idea that they were going to beat a 60-win Bucks team, as you've always had to convince me that like they would get by them. But if you do win a game like that, in that environment, Game 7 on the road, what happens, right? Is winning that series enough to say any of the nonsense we're dealing with the Jimmy Ben dynamic, do we just not care, right? Because
coming off a win.
Coming off of that series and that
even
moment.
Even if you lose to Milwaukee, but you go
you go to the conference finals,
yes.
You look like you're on the rise, like, oh, we can't break this team up, right? Maybe you have that. Maybe you do win that series. Maybe you do somehow win the title. And maybe, like, even if you lose to Milwaukee, you can go to, like, Joel Embiid and Ben Simmons and, like, all those guys. They have that under their belt forever. They won this high leverage, high intensity, knockdown, drag out fight, and just found a way to win, right? It means that contest from Joel in the corner, Kawhi misses it, you get to overtime, you win that game. There is no telling what the mental impact of that game, like, I don't know what it is. There's no way of knowing. I just know that when you talk to guys who have been there before, sometimes it really is as simple as like, I went and beat this guy one time. We beat this team in a series we should not have won. And then you can go into any series moving forward and say, well, screw it. If we can pull it out on the road against that team, against Kawhi in the middle of like one of the all-time series we've ever seen, why can't we go beat the Warriors? Why can't we beat Giannis? Why can't we beat, LeBron and the Lakers in 2020 in the bubble? Why can't we go and beat whoever as the years go down the road? That's, to me, the most interesting part of it. It's not that they might have won the title that year. It's that is a high enough consequence win that there is no telling how that mentally shifts everyone there. Like, I was in that locker room. I watched JJ Redick break down in tears about, you only get so many teams and chances like this. Everyone saw Joel in the tunnel. Derek and Rich talked to Brett Brown after the game, who was convinced his job was it. Like, he was done in Philadelphia. Like, you see the outpouring of emotion from all these people who realized in real time the opportunity that they had in front of them. So while it may not be number one for me, I 100% get why people feel that way. And it is the team that people still have the most reverence for, even though Joel wasn't truly Joel yet, because it feels like that was the time. And after that, it was never there again.
The Sixers were the number 3 seed in that Eastern Conference playoff bracket. And who knows what would have happened. They would have had to start on the road in Milwaukee coming off of Game 7 after the Bucks had ran through the Celtics in 5 easily. Hey, they might have got knocked off in 5 or 6. But how do you respond to that? You were 3 years in of their playoff start for what the Sixers were with Simmons and Embiid. Then you add the veteran to it, and you get to the Eastern Conference Finals in year 3. That can open up so many possibilities for you of how you now approach how to win a basketball series when you get to the playoffs. You're still so young. You keep the veterans there potentially, and Jimmy Butler, maybe even J.J. Redick. Brett Brown stays, as we already know. Maybe because of that, you go into that final series against the Bucks, and you see a different version of Butler and Simmons together that convinces you that it can work out and that they do have their...
Winning cures everything, right? If you somehow make the finals, I think it becomes easier to convince Ben and Jimmy we can do it, right? Yes. Like, we're both stubborn, ultra confident, like want the ball, all that. But if you in 1 year of being together can even get to the finals, I think that changes your mentality.
If you knock off that, to your point of how good Giannis and the Bucks were that year, you knock that team off. Mm-hmm. You're like, hell yeah, we can beat anybody. And Jimmy is probably the one that's going to initiate that conversation because Ben Simmons was not that type to try to have that talk. But maybe they do. And maybe Butler can get through to Simmons and saying, hey, we can work this out. And the same with Brett Brown and Jimmy Butler, where we can keep this together and this will work. And when you get to the season and the season starts, maybe not. And maybe you have to move on from Brown or Simmons or Butler. But at least that has you going into 1920 saying, you all better be scared to death of us because you saw what we did, and now we have another full year to get this thing a runway there. And Jimmy Butler empowers Embiid the way that he does, makes him feel like he is Embiid at his best, gets the best out of him like we saw with James Harden did in that MVP season. Joel still healthy. He takes a lot of pressure off of him. Who knows how it plays out? But that is number one on our list. What if, man, Kawhi doesn't make that shot? You got to win in overtime.
I don't want to think about all this anymore, man.
Yeah, that's it for us. And especially, man, that would have been an epic win to win in overtime on the road in that environment, all of that stuff. What a rundown here, everybody, for our top 10 for the Rank Week What If Sixers edition, where we end up with number 1, Kawhi Leonard misses a shot in Game 7. You go to overtime. Maybe the Sixers win and advance to the Eastern Conference Finals. This was fun. A lot of bad memories, but it was fun to talk about it and talk through.
It's a cleanse before we hopefully watch some VJ Edgecombe basketball.
Absolutely, 100%. So just a few things for us, everybody. Please check out our emergency podcast with Paul George that Colin and I and Bree did on Monday night as the news dropped that Paul George had to have arthroscopic surgery. And please go check out, if you're wondering why you guys not talking about Paul George, go check out our video at YouTube there about Paul George. We'll get to your super chats tomorrow because we're way over our overtime as we're in like triple overtime right now.
Really?
Yeah. So
this
make
is
sure you
in Summer League. This is sudden death tomorrow.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. And we also have some videos that are being posted as we speak. Bree, what do we have already for our Las Vegas content that we have available for everybody to watch? Jared McCain, and we have more things on the horizon from our time in Las Vegas. So, everybody, we thank you for hanging out with this triple overtime edition of the PHLY Sixers Podcast presented by Rothman Orthopedics. Visit rothmanortho.com/PHLY to learn more and make your appointment today. Kyle, this is fun. We'll get back to it tomorrow. Regularly scheduled time, 3 p.m. for everybody. So like and subscribe, all that.
Hit the thumbs up button to thank, as always, super producer Bree. But we also got some graphics assistance from Ethan today. So thank you to Ethan for his help making it all work. We obviously always thank Bree. We expect Bree here every day. Bree is as much a member of the show as we are, but thank you to Ethan for his additional assistance today as well. So that's the roll call. We can't. There's no roll call tomorrow. After that marathon. Tomorrow we'll make up for it. Until next time, goodbye.
See ya.
We all silly like the mayor.